Welcome to Class 401 Workshop. My name is Marianne McMillan. In 301, we learned that every member is a minister. This is done in the church. In 401, we will learn that every member is on mission. This is done in the world. In this workshop, you will learn how to teach Class 401 in your church. We are going to discuss what you need to prepare for this class. First, train instructors. You can use more than one instructor for this. Next, you will need class notes for teachers and students. Next, you will need a registration sheet. Make sure you have someone assigned to register each guest. Use someone different than the instructor. You can use a volunteer, or it can be a 401 assistant that have been assigned. Make sure you have enough handouts for everyone going through this class. The required handouts are Telling My Story sheet, which is a guide of how to share your story effectively, gospel tracts, a mission covenant card, next steps card. You will also need to advertise the class and arrange for there to be food if you are providing it. Next, we will go through conducting the training. First, you will give a personal introduction. Introduce yourself and welcome everyone. This should be a maximum of 2 minutes. You will read the welcome on page 7, go over the church vision on page 8, and lastly, go over the introduction on pages 9 through 10. This whole section should be around 5 minutes. Session 1 starts on page 11, Understanding God's Mission. To discover God's mission in the world, you must first understand God's overall purpose in creating human beings, Jesus' mission in coming to the earth, and the message of salvation. Make sure to focus on the gospel message on page 15 through 17. Use the tract that was given to them for this section, but introduce other gospel tracts that we use. Your pastor may have something else, but this is what we use. Pick one of these tracts and have them memorize it. Next, have each person share the gospel presentation with a partner and then reverse it. Allow them to have 15 minutes to go through this. Next is the motivation teachings on pages 18 through 21. After point number 10, on page 21, have each person list 5 people that they would like to pray for and share the good news with. This whole section should last around an hour. Before we go into session 2, we recommend taking a 10-minute short break. Once back, start session number 2, Communicating God's Story. To share what God has done in your life with other people, it helps to write your story in 4 parts, learn how to fish for people, and practice. Next, you will teach pages 24 through 29, sharing your story. On page 30, the instructor will share their personal story. This should be no longer than 3 to 5 minutes. After sharing, have the group answer the questions at the top of the page. Next, teach pages 24 through 29, sharing your story. On page 30, the instructor will share their personal story. This should be no longer than 3 to 5 minutes. After sharing, have the group answer the questions at the top of the page. Next, teach page 31. After this, stop and have each person write their personal story. This should be about 15 minutes. Have each person share their main 4 parts of their story with a partner and then reverse it. Next, teach pages 24 through 29, sharing your story. On page 30, the instructor will share their personal story. This should be no longer than 3 to 5 minutes. After sharing, have the group answer the questions at the top of the page. Next, teach page 31. After this, stop and have each person write their own story. This should be about 15 minutes. Have each person share their main 4 parts of their story with a partner and then reverse after 5 minutes. This should last around 10 minutes. Next, teach pages 34 through 35. At the end, have each person write the names. Next, have each person share their main 4 parts of their story with a partner and then reverse after 5 minutes. This should last around 10 minutes. Next, teach pages 34 through 35. At the end, have each person write the names of the people in their life who they associate with and pray for them. Lastly, teach pages 36 through 40. Like with the end of session 1, take another 10-minute break. Now we go into session number 3. Session 3 starts on page 41, Living on Mission for God. To engage in what God is doing around the world, you must first understand the spiritual state of the world, the vision and strategy of the peace plan, and what it means to live personal peace. Next, teach pages 42 through 51. Pages 52 through 54 is repeating what they have just heard. You can reference people to the Jesus model if you would like, but you do not need to teach these pages. Next, teach pages 55 through 58. Pages 59 through 61 focuses on personal peace. These pages are things that you can do. It starts with spiritual blindness, which is promoting reconciliation, egocentric leadership, which is equipping servant leaders, poverty, which is assisting the poor, disease, which is caring for the sick, and lastly, ignorance, which is educating the next generation. Page 62 sums up the class. Teach pages 62 to 64 to end the workbook. After this, read the Mission Covenant, having them repeat after you out loud. Next, have them sign the covenant and congratulate them on completing Class 401. This is the beginning of living life on mission. Next, complete the covenant sheet for our records. Next, complete the Next Steps card. Turn in the signed Mission Covenant sheet, not the Mission Covenant card, and the Next Step card. Lastly, pray a commission of each one as they go to live on mission every day. After this, have a staff member or volunteer take the Next Step cards that have been turned in and respond to each person within a week. Thank you for attending this class.